Here's the other thing I wanted to touch on, which is I wanted to take a minute to talk about the preview cadence.
Okay.
I have seen I have a perception that they are iterating, they are taking people's feedback at a fairly decent rate. Having
I
said
feel
that,
like that's almost fast.
I think that's not the predominant feeling, and even with me saying that, it does feel a little rushed. And I think with this big of a change, I think what would have been better for them to do, what I would have liked to have seen, and what I think would have given them more time to make more iterations and incorporate more feedback. It's that I think they should have had 3 or 4, even 4 weeks in between each preview.
I like that they're coming quick. I like that they're fast and furious. I think that they need to probably not be done. I think they need to be
Yeah.
like, okay, we haven't, this is, slow it down, do some more.
Or
If you,
maybe better. Here's kind of a mix of maybe of both of those things. Like have the still 2 weeks cadence, but have more previews, and say, okay, for this preview, we're gonna focus on iterating on these 3 destinies.
correct. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is pick three, tell them that's what you're going to focus on, and be like, all right, this week we're going to work on this and make sure these are balanced and working, ready to go. Make sure that we're reporting, focusing on these, because I just feel like it's so fast.
Yeah. Well, and I think the issue here is that it's not. It doesn't feel like. I think because of how fast it's going and how much there is. I mean, for crying out loud, there's 12 epic destinies at the same time.
The most
They're
popular system in Dungeons and Dragons history. Dungeons and Dragons online history.
Reincarnation might be more popular, but
No, it might be more used. It's certainly not more popular.
fair
People
enough.
love their epic
That's
destinies.
fair.
They love it.
But I think the amount of stuff that they're iterating on at the same time, they're not able to be as nuanced and nimble and fast on iterating on making changes. And I think that a lot of the response that they're getting of you're not listening to us, I think at least part of that is, and they even acknowledged it here, that we're not making changes to these because we're working on other things. I think it's too much for the team to be iterating this fast. And I think if they had given themselves more time and less focus or more focus each iteration, I think players would have a better experience through the preview process.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell what things could have been, right?
Right.
All we can do is kind of look at what we got and how it's projecting and what we think in the future would be like. So I feel like in the future, I like that they have like a 2-week cycle. I would like them to be a lot more narrow in their scope on what they want you to hit and target things. And if that means that they need to limit the build capabilities on Lamania to what they want to focus on, then I'm okay with that. I
I mean,
don't
I
love
think
it, but
they
I
could have
get
left
it.
them all up there, right? And just said, hey, between this preview and the next preview, we're only going to iterate on these 3 or 4 epic
And
destinies.
and I think that level of communication or something would be really good. And I think like, hey, a quick ratio of every 2 weeks or whatever they decide to go with, I think is fine as long as there's a good pattern to it. So you could be like, hey, these things did work or didn't work. We have a week to play with it. Here's an updated version. Here's another week to play with it. Here's another version out until we get what we want for those 3 things, you know? And then you can do the next ones. And then you can compare how those all feel together. When they said they were going to do this, I kept thinking, oh, well, it's going to be sometime between like right before Christmas that this comes out, right? Like I figured it would be in December. Like we were going to have a dozen previews. I think if you go back and look at the first stream of DDOcast after they announced this, I think I said somewhere in that ballpark. And now It's like what, next week?
I think probably Jerry said early November.
Yeah, I feel like I heard a whisper of the 4th from Jerry, but now maybe it's not. That's like that's a huge change. This is, if it was not for the graphics, in my opinion, Update 51 is DDO2 minus graphics. It's that level of change. You're talking
Sure.
about the entire metagame after level 20
is changing,
being completely different.
Yep.
Right? So like you're talking a huge thing. The most I keep saying it because it's true. The most popular system in the game. Right?
Yeah.
You can't screw it up.
Nope.
It can't be completely broken out of the box. It has to be good. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think it's going to be fine. As much as I sometimes question the decisions from the devs, I trust them. Like, the game is fun. If it wasn't fun, I'd stop playing it. Like, working on this room, right? I usually don't take time to play Dungeons and Dragons online unless I'm streaming it, right? It's just a sad habit of the streamer. But
right.
I was working on this, right? And I needed time for paint to dry or hang some pictures and stuff like that. I played for fun for the first time in quite a long time over the weekend working on this. I always have fun, but part of what I do is I put it out for the audience. This was me personal private time.
Mm-hmm.
And the devs that are working on this update are the same devs that made it where I can do that. So I trust them and I believe in them and I have faith in their ability. But I just want them to, like, when I say, well, hey, what about this? I want them to go, oh, well, we thought about that. And because of this reasons, you know what I mean? Instead of feeling like they're rushing through something because someone picked a deadline arbitrarily 6 months ago and said, well, we're going to have this update done by the middle of November. Before Thanksgiving, it's going to be done.
I think
that's just terrifying to me.
There's one thing I would add on to kind of what you're saying would actually be even worse than if it's broken and it falls flat. And that's if players don't buy into it.
Well,
It could work perfectly, but if players haven't bought into it, then it's never gonna it doesn't work. And I think that as fast as they're iterating, and as like a lot of the changes they've made are pretty small. Like they don't feel to me like big like they're not like scrapping a whole tree and like reworking it or something like that. They did some fairly big changes with some of the epic moments and stuff like that.
I feel like a lot of these are basic. Like a lot of them feel like that level of change, Patrick.
Okay.
Some of them feel really, really big.
But like I think players would be having a better experience with this preview process on this huge change for these really important things if it wasn't every 2 weeks that they were iterating on everything, and it's super clear and obvious that they don't have enough time to iterate on all this stuff because they've literally said that in the posts.
Yeah, I agree. It would be nice if they could narrow it down, slow down, take the extra time, make sure that it's right. Because I'm gonna get a little bit soapboxy and scary for a second, but a lot of other MMOs have taken a really big leap in player base lately. And a lot of the DDO community has joined these other games, which is not uncommon for DDO. DDO is very much like a seasonal game. Comes in, people come and go, and that's totally fine. That's always been the case with MMOs. But there's something different right now. Like, the people who are moving off of DDO are the people that I would not expect to leave. Like long-time, full-time players, people that put in hundreds of hours and literally thousands of dollars, right? Like, I feel like this is a time where they have to just be so careful, because if the update comes out and people flip on it a little bit or they don't care for it very much, it's an opportunity for those players not to come back and just be like, this was our out. This is our reason that we're done. And I'm a little bit concerned because the game is such a quality game. I've been playing some of these other games, and there's a lot of things that DDO does way better than any other game, infinitely better. And then we stumble on these little things that just don't make any sense to stumble on. And I don't understand why we hiccup on this stuff. And it's so hard because I mentioned earlier that I have so much faith in the devs and especially in the passion that they've been showing to us lately, which is a really nice thing. They've really been stepping up the communication with us, the audience. But at the same time, it's just, again, it's fast. There's so much writing on this. There's a lot of trepidation in it. And I hope that they feel a lot of us going, hey, we need to kind of slow down a little bit and make sure that this is correct. And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to say, including Patrick, including myself, that, and maybe I don't want to speak for you, but I feel so fast.
Yeah.
Man. And I'm legitimately afraid because I have been walking the line of leaving DDO, not leaving, I don't want to say leaving, but not being a primary DDO person, right? Like it goes back to Samus plays it for fun and then streams some other game. And I thought about that when they gave the free quest code away, the previous one, which I'm very excited they gave it the next one away. I thought that was very cool, but I still don't feel like my VIP subscription is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that feels like a negative. It's hard to play with people. Like all this stuff's going to change. It could be a real watershed moment. But on the flip side, there's an opportunity for this new game, right? With the new balance and the sins of the past, basically, I don't want to say forgiven, but at least improved on, right? And if they can in the next year do something with the graphics, we're competing again, right? The game is outstanding. The gameplay is good. We have some issues. We have some arrow stuff. We have some lag issues. We have some buffs. Like, it has issues, but we're 15 years old. And it's still good and exciting and fun. So I'm sure the devs already feel like there's a ton of pressure on their backs. And they are. And they should. And you do. But I believe that they can pull it off as long as they take the time. And I feel like I will continue to harp on, take it time. You don't have an arbitrary date for me, right? Listen to the feedback. People are posting on the forums like crazy. Apparently the Discord is way more efficient for actually having your voice heard at the moment. So maybe find the DDO Discord, but don't turn that into like a complaint section. Talk with people and be respectful, which I think is part of the issue that we have with feedback. But you guys, there's not very many times in a game's history where it could just flip or change and mutate in a way like this, right? And we're the people who keep the lights on. The Turbine's old slogan was powered by the fans, right? Even though they don't have the slogan, it's still true. So without us, they're nothing. But without them keeping the lights on and the game on, where are we going? Someplace else? So we have to be careful with each other. And like I said, it's a weird time. It feels weird, like between everything that's going on in the world, which we're not going to get into, but just the things that are going on with MMOs and people, the trends of wanting to stay more at home and do more stuff online. Like the world of MMOs is ready to explode. And DDO is ready to capitalize on it. We've seen ads on Facebook again for the first time in years.
Just fun.
Right? Like it's the most exciting time since the dread time of Menace of the Underdark. You know what I mean? Like you knew that the thing was there. It was going to be this amazing thing. We had this major thing that was going on, but it was so secret as opposed to now where we're getting to see it and touch it and experience it and help drive it. And the mistakes that were made then because we couldn't see it can be avoided now as long as we can communicate in a way that our points actually get across. And that is the most difficult thing in the world when you're trying to do it over text.
Well, and again, I think a lot of people are having an experience of they're not listening to us because
Correct.
you go from preview 1 to preview 2, and half
nothing
the
changes.
destinies didn't change because they didn't have time to touch them.
Right. Slow it down. Do some more. I can't think of another way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time. This is a big gamble. This is practically DDO2 in my world in the scale of scope. And I could be wrong, and they could be like, no, Sam, it's not that big of a scope. But it feels that big. It's what feels like 80% of the game is over level 20.
I mean, that's where you spend more of your time, I think.
Well,
I
you
certainly
people, not me.